respects to the late pontiff before a new pope is selected. But today and the next 9 days are all about remembering Pope Francis, the first South American pope, the pope of the modern age. Took office in 2013, spoke out about climate change, modern issues like climate change, the dangers of artificial intelligence, the LGBTQ community, we are joined by Dr. Anthony Samy, Professor at the Xavier Institute of Natural Resources, joining us from Anhil Yangar, India. Thank you very much, Dr. Anthony Samy, for joining us. What has been your thoughts on today's service, in the plight of people, the magnitude of people from around the world that have gathered today in both Rome and in the Vatican, and also, Dr. Anthony Samy, the different aspects, against the traditional norms that Pope Francis's funeral has adhered to? What are your thoughts?
Yes, this is a really wonderful question, because this is a way in which as you told before about this is unconventional Pope. There is a traditional way of going about the dogmatic church, which every rubrics has to be followed, and there is no way of diversion, and there is not allowed according to the dogmatic teachings. But here is the man who said that dogmatic teachings are meant for just not only for the church, but also to the human beings. So human beings he kept in that more than the dogmatic teachings. So he broke away all the traditional things, and whatever is necessary, gave a new interpretation. And he went to the meaningful dialogue with the people, those who are around the world, and people have got influential character in him, so that attracted each and every one of them. One of the things that not only he related himself with the spiritual man, but also a man who concerned about the nature and the earth, and also the participatory church, and also the neglected human beings. So altogether, the various aspects that which brought no pope has thought about this, but we vehemently he came out and he took. Actually, everybody is thinking he's a new one, and this is the progressive church, and everybody wants to walk into that particular church. Yeah, that is why you find a marvelous crowd. Everybody is appreciating his values, and everybody is thinking this is the loss of that values. I hope that people will elect such a pope that who will be in the future. Such a legacy will be followed further.
Yes. We have some breaking news coming in now. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, is leaving Italy. The American president reportedly squeezed in a meeting with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni before he left. He departed Rome. It's unclear if he met with Volodymyr Zelensky again, which was announced earlier on today during the funeral that he was going to be doing. There was those images that came out showing Zelensky and Trump inside St. Peter's Basilica, along with Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, and French President Emmanuel Macron as well. They were also in attendance and seemed to be in close conversation with the Ukrainian president and the United States president. We're going to now go over the more diplomatic aspects of the funeral. There was a round of applause for Zelensky as he came into St. Peter's Square this morning. The Pope, as we know, was a staunch advocate for the people of Ukraine. He supported them. Also in attendance, we had the Brazilian President Lula da Silva, along with Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister. Javier Milei, the Argentine President, was also in attendance. Obviously, the leader of Pope Francis's home country, and he became the leader of the church in Buenos Aires, actually, before he became the Pope of the Catholic Church. He also was also in attendance. Obviously, we have reiterated this, but Donald Trump was there with his wife. Donald Trump wore a black tie, signifying the traditional funeral look, along with his wife, Melania, who sat in the front row at the St. Peter's Square service. Melania there wearing a sort of veil, a black veil, to signify mourning. Prior to the service, we got some wind of reports of Trump and Zelensky meeting before the funeral. This was then confirmed by the government of Ukraine, who released images of the United States president and the Ukrainian president talking actually in the St. Peter's Basilica, which is where the initial service was held. As the Ukrainian president walked out, he received applause as he appeared for the first time in St. Peter's Square after there was concern that he wasn't going to be in attendance after the capital city of his country was struck by a missile a few days back. Also in attendance was British royalty. Prince William attended the funeral on behalf of his father, King Charles. He was seen paying his respects directly to the coffin as well. President Lula da Silva of Brazil was also in attendance, along with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, who were there to pay their respects to the late pontiff. Javier Milei, the Argentine president, in attendance, the head of the state where Pope Francis belongs to. Pope Francis was the head of the Argentine Catholic Church before he became the Pope. We now have a quote from Italian Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, who led the service today. He said, "The church, a home for all, remains open to everyone." He also said, "Build bridges, not walls," was something that Pope Francis repeated many times. Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re there leading the service. He also said, "The outpouring of affection following Pope Francis's passing reflects the deep impact of his pontificate on minds and hearts." Italian Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re statements there, 91 years old. Pope Francis has consistently called for peace, urging for reason and negotiations amidst the war horrors of recent wars. Pope Francis was obviously spoke out against the Gaza crisis, the Ukrainian crisis, all the current wars that are currently going on. He was very much against conflicts going on in the world. We are now joined by Joshua Barnes, anchor and correspondent, to discuss this further. Joshua, what updates have you got for us?
Yes, Thomas. Well, the updates from here on in will be limited, given that the service is now private. The feeds that we have, the live images of the funeral procession, have now stopped, with this burial being a private one behind closed doors, away from the public. However, there are, of course, several people outside, hundreds of people outside, St Mary's Basilica of all nationalities as well. Flags have been seen in and around the streets of Rome, Argentinian, Brazilian, Spanish, and from other nations too, and that signifies Pope Francis and his mission while he was the pontiff, of course touching every corner of the globe, and that was seen in the world leaders who were in attendance of this service at St Peter's Square, of course starting in St Peter's Basilica as well. The world leaders able to pay their respects before walking outside. This moment now is one of clear celebration but also solace ahead of that 9 days of mourning, which will start shortly.
Yes, Joshua, thank you very much for joining us. We are currently covering the death of the Pope. Public access, as Joshua just said, to today's proceedings has come to an end. The service is now very much a private ceremony which is ongoing. The pontiff will now be buried in private in Rome's Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. Neither the media or the public are allowed to attend the proceedings from here, but later on there will be a rosary service which is open to both. As we can see, as we can see the visuals of earlier, pallbearers moving the Pope's wooden coffin into his final resting place. In terms of diplomatic updates, we've received the news that Donald Trump, the US president, has left Italy to fly back to the United States from Rome's International Airport. We have the news coming in that he met with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni before heading off to the airport. We saw images coming in of President Zelensky and Donald Trump discussing things. Probably the Ukraine and Russia conflict. They were also joined by French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer as well. They were pictured. But that wraps up the funeral, the public funeral of Pope Francis. We have been covering it. More than 250,000 people attended today. 50,000 in St. Peter's Square itself and 200,000 throughout the streets of the Vatican and through Rome. We saw his 6-kilometer journey through the streets of Rome, passing iconic monuments like the Colosseum, as thousands of people lined the streets to pay their respects to Pope Francis.